Okay, so, hi. If you haven't figured out what this is yet, this would be the tutorial that you would follow that shows you how to actually train a Piper TTS voice on Windows and not on Linux natively because, you know, Piper is for Linux, and I don't feel like using Linux natively. So if you're like me and you don't want to dual boot your computer or just reinstall your entire operating system, well, follow this tutorial and I'll show you how to actually train Piper voices on Windows. There's articles too, but reading is for nerds. Now before we actually get to training the Piper voice and setting up Piper and WSL and all that, which is going to take ages, you'll need a couple things. Number one, you'll need voice samples of the voice that you want to train, obviously. And number two, you need a text transcript. Now, if you're saying, oh god, I don't have a voice transcript, well, you'll need to make one. And trust me, it's gonna take a while depending on how many voice samples you have because you're gonna have to write stuff. Now before we get to writing the voice transcript, I have to say something about the WAV files because there's requirements about those too. Yay! So first of all, the sample rate of the WAV files must be either 22,050 kHz, which I think stands for kilohertz, I'm not sure but I don't care anyway, or they must be 16,000 kilohertz, and they must be in mono, and the PCM must be at 16 bits. Now if you're wondering, oh god, that sounds really technological and I don't know how to do that. If you don't, well, in Piper, which we'll download later, there is a resample script which is broken. Thanks, Piper. But luckily for you, I decided to fix it, or ChatGPT did because I instructed it to, so I'll just provide that down in the description or something. So after you got those WAV files out of the way, it's time to write that text transcript that I was talking about. You're gonna have fun. So what you're gonna have to do is open that metadata.csv file, which should be blank, and do the following. You're gonna have to go into your waves directory and look at every single file, and then write them all down. Now what I mean by that is you're gonna have to type filename.wave pipe character, which is just like, if you have a Norwegian keyboard layout, it's like to the left of your number 1 key on your keyboard. Anyway, you're gonna have to write that, and then type the audio that's being described. So for example, if the file, in this case, was called file001.wave, and if the audio file was of me, for example, saying, hello, this is a test, I would write file001.wave bar, or pipe character, hello, comma, this is a test, and then you press enter to make a new line, and then it would do the same thing again, and again, and again, until you have successfully wrote every single WAV file in that directory down. Enjoy. I also forgot to mention that you have to have over 30 WAV files, so it's gonna take you a while. But anyway, after you're done with that, well, then you're done with this part at least. There's still lots we have to go through, but you're at least done with that. So now we're gonna get to installing Piper and WSL and all that. So let's do that, shall we? Welcome, my friend, to the land of the nerds, aka Linux. Okay, that was a joke, okay? Linux people don't come after me. Now, you don't have WSL yet, or Linux, or whatever you want to call it. WSL is basically Windows kind of version of Linux, if that makes sense. It stands for Windows Subsystem for Linux. And how do you get that, you ask? Well, you hold down that Windows key and press R, and you type CMD, and press enter. Now there, you would type WSL space -- install and press enter. Now after you've waited a while and accepted a few user account control dialogues, it's time to reboot and hope that your computer doesn't get sent to the shadow realm, because there's a 50% chance that your computer will boot up again. Rule number 1 of life, kids. Never trust any instructions that you get from random strangers on the internet. In case you couldn't tell, that was a joke, okay? Your computer will boot up again. So just boot up your computer again and come back here. Now, if you're not familiar with the command prompt or just Linux in general, just allow me to give you some general commands. cd is used to change directory. So in WSL's case, if I wanted to change the directory to the C drive, I would type cd space /mnt/c. Now the C doesn't need to be capitalized because, well, WSL knows that that's the C drive. So for example, let's say that I want to store all my Piper stuff in my documents folder. I would type cd space /mnt/c/users with capital U /your name /documents with a capital D, and then press enter. I would be in my documents folder. Now, it's at this point where I would begin copy-pasting commands. Now, how you do that in WSL is you right-click on the WSL window. Now, I know that might not make sense to NVDA users or users that don't know how to do that, so allow me to explain how. Basically, if you're using NVDA and if you're using a laptop keyboard layout, which I am, you press NVDA, Shift M to focus the mouse on the currently selected window, which would be WSL, and press numpad divide to paste. Now, if you don't know where numpad divide is, it's basically 2 keys to the right of the numlock key if you have a numpad. If you don't, well, you're fucked. I'm just joking, you're not. You could press NVDA and your right bracket key to paste instead of numpad divide. Now for me at least, I like to have my Piper stuff in my C drive or my documents or whatever. You can just store them wherever. I would recommend using an actual Windows install or like an external drive if you have one. In that case, you would just do mnt/drive number instead of C. I forgot to mention this earlier, but if you're going to be training Piper voices, you should probably have an NVIDIA GPU. You can train on the CPU too, but it's not as efficient as training on a GPU. For example, I have an AMD Ryzen 5800X. With that, it takes about 12 hours to like a day before a voice is finished training up to usable state. So it is possible, but it's not going to be as efficient as with an NVIDIA GPU. Now that you know that, it's actually time to get Piper installed and get to actually training your voice. So type cd space and then the directory where you want to store your Piper and all your other stuff in. In my case, that'll be my C drive and my documents folder. So if you don't know how to do that, just refer back to the other section of the tutorial. Now, whenever you press enter, you'll appear in that directory. Type git space clone space https://github.com/rhassspy/piper.git and press enter. Now whenever you did that, Piper will be downloaded into the directory that you are currently in your command prompt. Whenever that's downloaded, type cd space Piper and press enter. From here, type cd space src and press enter, and then cd space Python and press enter once again. Now before we actually start training your Piper voice, there's some more stuff we need to install. So type apt-get space install space python3-dev and press enter. Now after a while, it will say that so and so much disk storage will be used. If you're okay with that, just type Y and press enter and python3-dev will be installed. Now after that, you need to run another apt command. So type the same thing, apt-get space install, but this time type espeak-ng and press enter. And the same procedure follows. Press yes, and espeak-ng will be installed. This is necessary to actually get Piper to actually work properly and not error out on you. And now we're actually going to use that python3-dev thing you installed earlier. And if you didn't, well, go do it, because if you don't, well, this next step is going to absolutely fail on you. So what you need to do is type python3 space -m space venv space .venv. Now what this will do is create a Python virtual environment. So allow me to explain what that is. Basically, a Python virtual environment would be, picture it like an empty box with nothing in it, okay? Now why you would need to do this is because let's say you install Piper, okay, which requires a certain library and a certain version of library. Now let's say you want to install something else that uses the same library but a different version. Now if you didn't have a virtual environment, those libraries would be installed at the exact same location and your projects might conflict or just error out or do whatever. So that is why you actually need a virtual environment. Now you have created a virtual environment but you haven't actually activated it yet. To activate that, you would need to type source space .venv/bin/activate and press enter. Now you're in your virtual environment. Now we need to go install some more things for, you know, Piper again to actually work. And now we need to go install some more stuff. So type pip3 space install space dash dash upgrade space pip and press enter. Now this will basically uninstall and reinstall pip to the latest version. Pip is basically like Python's, like, I guess you could call it package downloader, which will basically install like Python modules which are necessary for Python applications to run. After that, you type pip3 space install space dash dash upgrade space wheel space setup tools in one word and press enter. Now this will also upgrade your wheel version or your wheel setup tools, which is basically another way to install packages. Now you need to type one last pip command and then we're done. So type pip3 space install space dash e space dot and then press enter. Now this will install a whole bunch of Python modules, which will probably take a while. So just come back here whenever that's done. Now assuming that you're in the src Python directory, which you should have cd'd to earlier, we'll have to run another command. So type bash space build underscore monotonic underscore align.sh. Alternatively, you could just type bash space build and press tab to get auto completion and press enter. And now, congratulations, you're actually done installing everything. So now we're going to move on to the actual pre-processing and training part, which is going to take the longest to complete. So just prepare yourself. Okay, so this is going to be the final stage of this tutorial, which I'm going to be showing you how to pre-process your voice and train it. Now, I can help you a little bit in terms of training, but it's your job to actually train it to the point where you can actually use it. You see, if you train it too much, you can overtrain it and it won't sound good. If you train it too little, it's not going to sound good either. If you undertrain your voice, you can resume from a checkpoint, which I'll show you how to do. And make sure to back up your checkpoints regularly, because you don't know when you're going to overtrain it. You basically have to use your ears and just listen to the result as they go along. So let's get to it. For future use, I would recommend saving these commands to a text file, as well as the command used to run your Python virtual environment, because if you close your WSL window, the virtual environment is disabled and you have to enable it again. So for future use, just say these commands so you don't have to type everything again. Now, before we train your Piper voice, we need to actually pre-process the dataset. The way you do that is you type python3 space dash m space Piper underscore train.preprocess space dash dash language space and then your language. Now, what I mean by that is, for example, if I was training a English US model, I would type n-us. I will link a bunch of language codes in the description so you can find yours, but just type that in there. Now you type space dash dash input dash dir or dir space path to your Piper dataset. For example, if my voice was in my documents folder and if it was named voice, I would type dash dash input dash dir space slash mnt slash c slash users slash username slash documents slash voice. Now hit space again and type dash dash output dash dir space and then the path to where you want your Piper voice to be trained and pre-processed to. Do the same thing, except replace the directory name that you put your voice in with the training directory that you want. For example, slash mnt slash c slash users slash username slash documents slash Piper training or something like that. Now hit space again and type dash dash dataset dash format space ljspeech. Now, if you're training a multi-speaker dataset, you would not do this next step. However, in this tutorial, I'm not showing you how to do that. I'm showing you how to train a single speaker dataset. So, in this case, you would type space and then type dash dash single dash speaker. Then you would type space and then dash dash sample dash rate space and then your sample rate. For example, sample rate space 22,050. Now you press enter and your voice should be pre-processed. If you're getting your tracebacks, for example, n must be at least 1, that means that you don't have the amount of required files for the Piper voice, which should be above 30, minimum like 32 or 33. If you don't have like 33 files, you should probably go do that before you come back here and finish the rest, because if not, nothing will be generated. If your voice finished preprocessing successfully, if you go into your output directory, you'll see 3 files: config, dataset, and cache, which is a folder. If you did this, and if those files show up, then you can move on to the next step, which is going to be the longest one, which is going to take the most time and fine-tuning, which is training. Now this is the command that I definitely recommend saving to a text file, as well as the exporting command, because you're going to be using those a lot, especially if you're like pausing and then resuming training again. You'll need to paste that training command unless you want to retype everything again. And by everything, I mean the training command. So just save that to a text file if you so wish. But anyway, here's the command. Okay, so I just want to say that every command forwards includes spaces. So if I don't say anything, I'll just put a space between dash symbols. For example, if there's like a piper dash dash thing, I will not be saying space because I'll just stretch this thing out way more than it needs to be. Anyway, let's hear the command, shall we? Python 3 -m piper_train --dataset-dir path to your dataset. Now, if you're training on a GPU, you want to include this next line, but if you don't, just skip right to the next one. The line is -- accelerator space apostrophe GPU apostrophe. Now this next line I'm kind of unsure about, but I included it anyway since I don't know if it's for GPU or not. I use it personally, but you do -- devices space 1. Then you do -- batch size space and then a number. Now the higher the batch size number is, the more GPU RAM or PC RAM is going to be used by Piper. For example, if you have a batch size of 32, it's going to use 24 gigabytes of GPU RAM and or physical RAM. -- validation split space 0.0. Now I cannot give you that much information about this line other than the fact that I use it personally and this has worked good in my case, so you can test out that and figure out what works for you. Anyway, next line is -- num -test -examples space and then a number. I personally use 0, but you can experiment with different numbers as you wish. -- max_epochs space and then a number. Now what this command does is if Piper detects that it has trained above that number, it will stop it. Let me give an example. So let's say that I'm training from a checkpoint and the checkpoint starts training at number 6000. If I enter 7000 there in the MaxEpochs value, it'll stop training after it has reached the number 7000. This would not be ideal if you're training from a checkpoint that starts at a higher number than you enter, because then the Piper will not train at all, it will just exit. -- resume from checkpoint space and then the path to your checkpoint file. Now I will link a bunch of checkpoints in the description for you to download. Basically you just paste the checkpoint file in whatever directory you wish, and then you just type that path into that, if that makes any sense. So for example, resume from checkpoint space /mnt/c/ checkpoint.ckpt -- checkpoint-epochs space and then a number. I can unfortunately not tell you much about this command other than that I personally use one, but others can probably tell you, or I could just make an update or something. But anyway, the last line before you press enter is -- precision space 32. Then you press enter. And congratulations, your Piper should now begin training. Now if you want to pause training at any moment, you just press Ctrl+C to stop the current operation being performed in the terminal. If you at any point want to see how your model sounds, I would personally use the infer command, which is basically it generates an audio sample. However, I can't get that to work on my end, so I unfortunately can't tell you how to do that. But what I can tell you is how to export the model. Before I tell you how to do that, I need to tell you how to access your checkpoints. So, go into the output directory that you specified earlier in your Piper train command. There should be a folder called lightning logs. Go in there and go to the highest number in there. So for example, lightning logs \version 5, press enter there. You'll find a folder called checkpoints, go in there, and inside there should be one. If you typed 1, there should be one checkpoint file in there. Now, copy the name of that file onto your clipboard, and then run this command. Python 3 space -m space piper underscore train dot export underscore onnx space, and then the path to your checkpoint file, and then the name of the checkpoint, for example, /mnt/c/checkpoints/ and then the file name of the checkpoint, space, and then you type the path that you want your model to be exported to. For example, /mnt/c/models/ whatever.onnx. Now, if you exported your onnx file and you've installed your Piper voice into NVDA and you find out, okay, this doesn't sound too good, either that it's overtrained or undertrained, you would run the train command again, except this time you would replace the resume from checkpoint path that you entered earlier with the path to the checkpoint that you last trained from and that you found in your lightning logs folder. So as a bonus, I just thought I would show you how to actually install Piper voices into your NVDA. To do that, press Windows R and type %appdata%. This will bring you to the roaming folder. Whenever you're in there, you can press Ctrl A and then press Shift Delete and watch everything just get sent to Shadow Realm because you are a fucking idiot and followed instructions once again provided to you by a stranger on the internet. But in all seriousness, you don't do that. What you do, however, actually do, is go to your NVDA folder, then Piper, then Voices, and then venv 1.0.0. Inside there, you'll find a directory with all your Piper voices, if you have any installed. Just create a new folder with the language, the name, and the quality of the voice. For example, n_us-voice-medium. And then you go into there, you copy your onnx file, and name it the exact same thing as you named the folder. Then you copy your config.json file and name it the exact same thing. Then you restart your NVDA, and if your voice works, but if you're not satisfied with the result that it gave you, just resume training and just follow the steps that are provided earlier. If you are satisfied with the result, however, then congratulations, you have trained your own very own Piper voice. And if you want to do it again, you're gonna have to do everything again from step 1, except activate the virtual environment, because you already did that once and you don't have to do it again. Unless you install WSL, of course, or if you want to do Piper stuff on another drive. Anyways, this video is sponsored by... What, you thought I was gonna say something? In all seriousness though, I do hope you found some use of this tutorial. If you got halfway through, or got stuck because I'm terrible at explaining things, just leave a comment down below or something and explaining your issue. I can probably try to help you. If not, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you later.